Welcome to this fifth episode of this cycle of podcasts dedicated to human service field. And this month, in the sign of Leo, we'll be focusing on the field of new psychology, and in particular, how we as humanity enter into the greater contact with our own inner consciousness and the divine. My name is Lorraine Flower, and I'm a member of the Community of Living Ethics and your host for this podcast today. Leo is a fire sign which nourishes the continuous process of self-awareness. It brings us into contact with two creative energies: the energy of will and power, which invites us towards a deeper knowledge of ourselves, and the energy of knowledge itself, which opens the door to more structured inquiry to penetrate the visible form and reveal the deepest essential core, what we might call our soul. It seems then that we can see Leo as an invitation to know ourselves better, not only in the more visible ways, but also in our core essence, and through that to reveal the divine within and throughout humanity. So today we'll explore the field of new psychology, and I'm delighted that we're joined by Marina Bernardi, a psychologist and psychotherapist, and president of the Community of Living Ethics here in Umbria, Italy. Welcome, Marina. Namaste.
Namaste, Lorraine.
Thank you so much for being with us today for this important subject at a time when I believe our world needs us to discover our inner self. So we've used that greeting of Namaste, and the principle behind that Indian greeting is that I recognize and honor the divine that is in you, in me, in all of us. And I think we could say it's becoming a reality that today goes beyond philosophies and religious beliefs. How do you believe the science of psychology is moving in this direction?
Yes, it's particular that this way of greeting, which is Namaste, is very ancient. It's Oriental and ancient one, but it corresponds, in my opinion, a lot with what new psychology could be and would be. In fact, if we speak about new psychology, we have to start exactly from this point, which is the point of God in ourselves. God as our inner nucleus, luminous and deep, which is the essence of all creatures, all creation in the cosmos and in human beings. It's an essence which is based on self-awareness, and a self-awareness that can be experienced and fulfilled consciously realized. Therefore, the divine, which has always been considered transcendent, superior, and ineffable, becomes, in this Aquarian age, immanent, lived and experienced in daily life. And this is the starting point from which to turn our gaze into ourselves, thus letting go the attitude of total concentration on the external world. Assagioli, who is the founder of psychosynthesis, has defined this passage with a very interesting word, which is intronaut, which is the opposite of astronaut, or is going inside at the same way that the astronaut goes outside in the cosmos. And this means learning to navigate in our inner world. But before navigating, we need to begin to believe that not only this inner world exists, but it's a deep part of who we are. For many human beings, this idea is still far from being understood, but for others, it has become even more than an idea. It has become a real experience. So, therefore, in order to speak about new psychology, we have to consider human being as a multidimensional being, and therefore a being who can live simultaneously in many different worlds, which are interpenetrated, and therefore we can add to the 3 dimensions through which we observe reality also the 4th dimension, the subtle and intangible dimension, but not for this less true.
These are very, very important concepts that you're bringing forward, Marina. This sense of knowing ourselves from the inside and being in contact with that different, more subtle reality. When you think about the cornerstones of new psychology, what comes to your mind as the core principles? How can we understand this phrase more fully?
Yes, we can speak about new psychology, comparing it with the classical, normal, usual psychology, which is the psychology of adaptation, adapt to the outer world as best as we can. And while the new psychology starts from recognizing what we are not. Therefore, all those behaviors, conditionings, habits that we have absorbed from the outer world, and they have become part of ourselves, of our way of express ourselves in the world, but they are not who we really are. And we have to begin recognizing this first recognition, distinguishing the not self from who we are. Very often, all these conditionings have become so deeply part of ourselves that we believe to be all of that. And we live a life according with all of these different aspects, which are not really who we are. And therefore, this first stage is the recognition of the not self. And in the beginning, we just begin saying, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not that. And we'll experience a kind of emptiness, because the question is that, who am I? And we have to courageously go through that experience of emptiness, because this is what creates the necessary space so that some sparks of our real being begin showing up and manifesting themselves. And therefore, it requires detachment and considering relative what we believe to be absolute, at least temporary, and also detachment from what we have always done, which is our roles, behaviors, occupations, and opening up the door to something deeper. Something deeper, in simple terms, is our qualities. Our qualities are deeper. They are on a different level, on a deeper level, deeper compared with our behaviors, outer behaviors. If we go more deeply inside us, we meet our qualities. A quality is a subtle aspect which we cannot identify with something concrete, at least at the beginning, even if once we have touched a quality, then this quality tends to manifest itself in something more visible, more concrete. The quality is a note, a deeper note, which underlies to our behaviors, but it's broader and it can express itself in many different ways and in many different fields of activity. Therefore, I would say that the new psychology is first of all a psychology of qualities. And qualities are potentialities. They remain as potentialities till we manifest them in the world. And therefore, the new psychology is the psychology which looks for and tries to discover the potentialities of a human being, and therefore is a psychology of the potentialities, much more than a psychology of adaptation. This is very important because adaptation is something which makes always the outer world as the main point of reference, while the qualities make the inner world consider the inner world as much more important than the outer world. Not because the outer world is not important, but because first comes the inner world and the discovery of the inner world, and then the outer world is a result of this first discovery.
It's interesting because that, as you're speaking, brings me fully back to the greeting that you explained to us, and that ability for each of us to be able to see the divine, which we might also use the word deep qualities that exist within the other person, rather than always focusing on this outer form.
Yes, and usually the divinity that we, when we think of the divinity, we think that the divinity doesn't have any quality. No, it's something really beyond any manifestation. While it starts expressing from the level of quality, the divine too expresses itself through qualities. And then qualities create the forms and the outer world. And therefore we have to go back to the divine in us and in some way repeating that pathway which was utilized by the divinity to create the world. So we have to learn how to create our world, starting from that initial point of the essential nucleus, then the layer of qualities, and from the qualities to the outer manifestation.
So as you're bringing us to that point, I'm wondering also two things really. One about the power of thought, because we know that how we think also creates our outer experience, our manifested form. But also at this time in Leo, we have some qualities in the energy of Leo, in the sign of Leo, that maybe help us. So I'm wondering here, can you say anything for us about the power of thought and how we might utilize some of the power of Leo?
Yes, I would say that every human being faces the world according with his or her own concept of life and of the world. And therefore there are as many ideas and concepts of the world as how many we are in the world. And therefore thought is extremely important, because through thought, through a right thinking, we can put ourselves a question: what is my idea of myself and of the world? and of myself in the world. And therefore beginning thinking of the concept we have of what is a human being and what am I or who am I? This starts from a thought. Obviously, it looks like more like a philosophical thought than a psychological thought. But philosophy and psychologists are closer than what we believe them to be. And a mature human being, a human being who is already sufficiently mentally polarized, can afford to put this question himself or herself. What is my idea of life, of the world? And if it's not clear at the beginning, it can be deepened. No, it can be deepened. It can be. It's a question which can be there, and slowly the answers arrive. They come to us. If we put the right question, the right answers can arrive to us. And so from this, if we get this clarity, who am I and what is the meaning of my world around me? From this emerges a clearer vision of the connections, of the relations, and also a clearer self-awareness. And therefore, I would say there are three attitudes that we can cultivate. One is learning to observe ourselves, which is part of thinking, because we observe and we think, we utilize our thought to self-observation. The second one is assuming responsibility for our life. This is extremely important because till we give the responsibility and the guilt of what happens to us to the outer world, we think in a wrong way and we waste time and energy. And therefore, in order to assume responsibility for our own life, we have to utilize our right thinking. And the third attitude is acting from that deep point, deep and true point to which we are able to arrive. We cannot expect to understand everything of who we are and what the world is, but starting from that point of reflection which is accessible to us, and starting from that point, and gradually we will get a deeper point and a wider, a broader understanding of ourselves and of the world, because self-understanding, self-knowledge, self-awareness is an infinite process. It doesn't end. We can get deeper and deeper layers of understanding, and therefore self-observation, assumption of self-responsibility, and acting from that deepest point to which we are able to arrive in a certain moment, which will be deeper tomorrow and even deeper after tomorrow.
Thank you, Marina. These three steps or points of reference for us feel very powerful to me, and really take us fully into the energy and qualities of will and power in Leo, because we need that discipline to stay aligned in that process of self-awareness, of self-responsibility, and also then acting from that new place, and that requires that alignment with the energy. As we come towards the end of our time now today, I'm wondering whether you have for us and for our listeners a phrase or a thought that you feel people could carry with them in their daily lives that might sum up some of what you've said.
Yes, I love to go back often to the ancient, it's from the time of the Greek civilization, that ancient sentence, man, know yourself, which is very common. All of us know it, but there is no end, no, to this knowing ourselves. And to this short sentence, I would add, in order to understand the world and to act in it with awareness and power. And so we come to the values of Leo, which are self-awareness, sense of ourselves, and power. And knowledge as well. And therefore this sentence, know yourself to understand better the world and to act in it with awareness and power. This is, I believe, an affirmation we can really express the Leo values and the values of new psychology.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marina. And within that is a deep resonance of that power and energy. Thank you so much for your time with us here today. And we look forward to welcoming you into our podcast series again at some point in the future. But for today, thank you very much. And we will see you again, hopefully very soon.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good Leo time.
For everyone. Thank you. This podcast was offered by the Community of Living Ethics, Umbria, Italy, and freely inspired by Aldebaran, the community's Astrosophy group, and by our research on service.